We're just waiting for Youssef to join us here, and then we'll get started. There he is now. Fortunately or unfortunately, I get to be the chair for about 5 minutes until you guys elect one. So, all right, Youssef, are you there? You can hear us?
Yes, I am. Good morning, guys. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Good morning, everybody. So as I just mentioned to this group, now we need to elect a chair. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. So the TNRD acknowledges that we connect with many First Nation communities across our vast regional district, and today are located on the Kamloops the Secwepemc territory, situated within the unceded ancestral lands of the Secwepemc Nation. The TNRD appreciates the partnership that we have with the Kamloops the Secwepemc and respect the territory and land on which we gather today. So I'd like to initially pass it over to our Deputy Corporate Officer, Agnes, to take you through the election, and we should be able to get started then right after that.
Thank you. Good morning. Before we move on with the election of chair and vice chair, I'd just like to give you an overview on the mandate of this committee. This committee is made up of all 10 electoral area directors. Currently, within the terms of reference, it's to meet 6 times a year, or as otherwise convened at the call of the chair of the committee. The mandate of this committee is to provide advice and recommendations to the board concerning services and service delivery in electoral areas, provide advice and recommendations to the board on matters that relate to electoral areas or are deemed to be of interest primarily to electoral areas, and to provide advice and recommendations to the board on any matters that have been specifically referred to the committee by the board. Just to note that as with all of our other committees, any recommendations that come out of this committee are recommendations to the board. The board would then make the final determination on whether that recommendation would move forward or not. Having said that, we will move on to the election of chair and vice chair. As set out in the Local Government Act and the Board of Directors Procedure Bylaw, we'll now carry out the election of the chair for the Electoral Area Committee. Nominations will be called 3 times. As candidates are nominated, they will be asked if they consent to nominations. Nominations will then be closed. If there is only one consenting candidate, that candidate will be acclaimed as the chair. And if there are 2 or more consenting candidates, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to say a few words if they wish before the ballots are distributed. I will now call for nominations for the position of chair. First call for nominations for the office of chair. Director Graham? Director Laird, do you consent? Yes. Second call for nominations for the office of chair. Third and final call for nominations for the office of chair. I declare the nominations closed for the office of chair. Director Laird, you're acclaimed as the chair of this committee.
Agnes, I just had one question. Is the chair for the full year now?
It is, yes.
Yeah, we don't have an like what we were doing.
Is it 2 years? 2
Okay,
years?
the 2-year chair.
Okay.
If I'd known that, I might not put my name forward.
Okay, we'll now move forward with the nominations for the position of vice chair. I'm not going to reread what I just read, but I'll just go straight to calling for nominations. First call for the nominations for the office of vice chair. Director Houghton.
I'd like to nominate Area J Director Michael Grenier.
Director Grenier, do you consent? Second call for nominations of vice chair. Third and final call for nominations for the office of vice chair. I declare nominations closed for the office of vice chair. Congratulations, Director Grenier.
So congratulations to chair and vice chair and Director Laird, or Chair Laird. It's all you. It's different, yeah. It's all you. Go for it. Up to you guys.
Chair Laird, excuse me, is your mic on? Thank you.
Yeah, I remember faces, but sometimes I have a hard time with names, so bear with me on that. So I just go right into the meeting now. Okay. So the first item on the agenda that we have to deal with is the minutes from September 22nd, committee of the whole meeting. So I need a mover and a seconder for Director Grenier. And turn my phone off. All in favor? Motion's carried. And this morning we have some delegations who are going to be presenting to us. We have the Ministry of Highway of Transportation and Infrastructure. And I'm not sure who's leading off that presentation. That'd be great.
Hi there, it's Brad Bush with the Ministry of Transportation Infrastructure. I'm the operations manager in Merritt. I've got Sam Pantaleo. He's operations manager here in the Kamloops area, and Graham Schimpf is our district manager for the whole Thompson-Nicola regions or district. So thanks for having us today. And we're here to discuss kind of road maintenance processes and how we do provincial road maintenance on our provincial road system. So there's some new area directors or electoral elected directors in the area here. So it'd be a good idea to kind of get this out there so people have an understanding as to what we do on our roads and how we do it and who does it. So. All righty, here we go. We called this Road Maintenance 101. It's just a basic sort of overview of what we do for road maintenance in the district and across the province. So.
Manually do it once, I think it'll be up.
There we go. Cool. So just a little bit of history on road maintenance in BC. It was pre-1988. It was all provincial government employees, and it was all ministry owned equipment and ministry employees and everything like that, government employees that did all the works on the roads. And then in 1988, we privatized the maintenance contracts across the province, and it was divided into 11 districts and 28 service areas. And just for reference, there's 2 service areas in the Kamloops. Service area 15 is Kamloops and North, and then service area 14 is the Nicola area. A lot of the existing district managers started new maintenance companies at the time, and they took on all of the existing government employees as well. And where are we now? 35 years later, we are round 6 of the contract process, and it started out. The most recent one was renewed in 2018, 2019. They started out as like a 2-year type of contract at the start, but we found it really hard for the private companies to amortize equipment and things like that over 2 years and make things profitable and not profitable, but manageable and have their proper equipment and stuff. As you know, buying a new truck, they're very expensive. So when they got to buy 35 plow trucks at $1 million each, pretty hard to write that off in 2-year contracts. So if you have no assurances, so things were extended along, and now we're into a 10-year contract now with an optional 5-year renewal. They're a lump sum contract, so the company that's successful in the area gets a lump sum for the whole contract area, and every month they get 1/12 of that. Doesn't matter if they cost more to do it that month or less. That's what they get every month, so they can budget out their year. It's also an end product contract. So what we measure by is what we see on the road. There's a specification there that they have to meet, and we don't really, well, we do care, but we don't focus on how they get to that point. It's more that they get to that point. So if they want to try some new innovative things, then they're able to do that, and they can move forward with that type of stuff. 3 types of maintenance. We have routine maintenance, which is basically your day-to-day stuff. You know, the patrols, the sign washing, the plowing, all that kind of stuff that goes on that you see out there on a regular basis. And then there's a quantified portion of the contract, which is more not short response time type stuff. It's more quality type thing we're looking for, like grading or mowing, median mowing, side mowing, pothole patching. There's both routine and quantified and pothole patching. And then we have additional services, which are like things like emergency response and things like that. If you remember, Herb, in Merritt, we had all those emergencies last year and a few around here as well. So we have to respond to those on our roadways. There's 2 monitoring periods, winter and summer, and they both get assessed separately. So there's a stakeholder component to that where we reach out to stakeholders and we ask for some feedback. We do a local assessment, we do auditing, we do monitoring on a daily basis, and that happens both winter and summer. This is kind of a key slide here. Don't take offense to this, please. Every road you drive is the most important road. Unfortunately, not quite. And if you can put that in context, like if you, I live in Castle Towers up the hill here, and it's covered in this much ice right now. And you know, that's a really important road to me, but I understand the city has much more higher class roads that they got to maintain. So I don't get too upset. But for us in the Thompson-Nicola district, we have 6,755 lane kilometers of road to maintain. I think it's 68 bridges, says there. So that's it's quite a big inventory, stretching all the way from near Vola down to Porsche, almost to Hope there. So the roads are divided into classes, and they're divided into classes by season. The summer classes are numerical, 1 through 8, 1 being the Coquihalla Highway. 8 would be just a right of way that we have that's unmaintained, or maybe even a side road that's unmaintained, but nobody lives down at the end of. Winter classes are alphabetical, A through F, same sort of scenario, A being the Coquihalla and F being the side road. And some examples there. Coquihalla Highway is a 1A, it gets the highest standard of maintenance, and then say Bond Valley Road or another side road in your area that's not graded or maintained regularly would be like a no maintenance road. But we still have obligations on there to keep it safe. If the tree falls on it or blows out, we have to reopen it and that sort of stuff, but we don't do regular maintenance on it. Oh, one more thing on that last slide there. Anything that has a school bus running on it is considered a C class road by default. So it gets that middle level of maintenance. As soon as you have a school bus on it, it becomes a C class road. And our maintenance contractors, we reach out to school districts every year and find out where they're operating, if they got new school bus routes, so that they can adjust their schedules.
Yeah, a class C road will also include any road that has consistent heavy industrial traffic on it. So yeah, school bus or consistent heavy traffic.
Yeah, and so moving on to summer maintenance here, the 6 categories, obviously surface, drainage, roadside, traffic maintenance, structure, and then of course the overall network management. And each of those things are done in a logistical sort of fashion, right? So you don't start sweeping at the top of the Coquihalla in May, because we still get snow. So we start that sweeping down in Lytton area, so where it's warmer and stuff like that, and typically not going to get snow. So it kind of moves throughout the whole area as things sort of open up. Winter maintenance is divided into 4 sort of categories. We've got highway snow removal, snow and ice bonding, prevention and control. You have other snow removal for sidewalks and things like that, over bridges and stuff like that. And then there's snow avalanche response as well that we're responsible for on our provincial highways and roads. So people always wonder how much snow is allowed here and there. On an A class road like Coquihalla, they technically don't have to have a plow out onto the road until there's at least 4 centimeters of snow on the road. I made up a little stick here. I can pass it around, but it's a good visual, right? Everyone likes a good visual. So 4 centimeters is that much. So until they get that much on the Coquihalla, they actually don't have to be out there plowing. But when it's forecast, they're out there cycling, getting ready for it. A B class road is 6 centimeters, and a D class road is 10 centimeters of snow is allowed on it. And then you go on to your E class, or D, sorry, is 15, and E is 25 centimeters of snow is allowed on an E class road. You guys want to, well, you guys know how much is what, but if you want to look at it, here it is. It kind of gives a good idea, because a lot of times, and that's fresh fallen snow. So when the snow starts falling there, they're out there planning, and they man up based on the forecasts. So, but we have plows that move stuff out of the way, and then we can use salts and brines also to restore traction. So if the temperatures are -7, salt works really well below -7, warmer than -7. But when we're down to the -8, 9, 10 degree temperatures there, the salt tends to refreeze again. So, and it dilutes a bit, so it refreezes even lower than -7. So it's tough sometimes to plan. So it's very key for planning to know what the temperatures are going to be. But we've added new ideas over the years. VSA was one of the first ones down in Merritt to start out with this beet juice and using vegetable carbohydrates and whatnot. And when you add that to those slurries, it lowers the freeze point. So it gets it down to -9, 10, 11, 12 in that area. And there's some other ones there that can go really low, but they're kind of cost and corrosive prohibitive. So we don't use those. But we can also use these brines and that to pre-treat the roads if we know a big snowstorm's coming and it's going to be heavy. We can pre-treat it there so that when the snow does fall and gets compacted on there, it can get peeled off a little bit easier. So it buys us a little bit of extra time there.
Or like you said, ahead of time, put it down so it doesn't bond to it.
Yeah, we put it down and then helps out.
Farm tires for. Put your microphone on, Doug. Hit your microphone so you can hear us. No problem.
We use beet juice in place of calcium now in our farm tires. I used to be in the farm tractor business.
Right.
We've gone away from calcium and gone to beet juice for that same reason.
Perfect. Yeah, you don't get a big clump in there. Sands, we call them abrasives. They are used and developed in the fall, and they're stored in key locations so that our plow trucks can refill and then use them again there. The maximum size in the new round of contracts here is 9.5 millimeters, and it's all sieved when it's made. So it goes through. There's a few pieces that might escape there, but like the majority, we do audits on it and it's tested. And we get 9.5 millimeter size. 12.5 is for the side roads. We can use a bit heavier grit on there because it's not, the speeds aren't up, so. And ICBC actually sets the size of those particles. So you find if it's too small, the third semi truck that goes by the highway on the Coquihalla, all the sand is blown off the road from the wind and everything. So a little bit bigger, it sort of digs and bites in a bit more, and it helps. And they're used to restore the traction on compact snow and ice when we can't, when it's too cold. To that cold snap we had a few weeks back there when it was really cold, we couldn't use chemicals to remove it. It was just too cold for that. So we would use sand and that, and it slowly breaks it down as the vehicles go over it, provides you a bit of traction. So seasonal planning is required to ensure permitting and equipment and contractors are available. So just because we're the government doesn't mean we have authorities just to go and take water from any water course to do grading and things like that. We all have to get the permits and follow all the environmental best practices and rules that are applicable to what we're doing. The winter maintenance, like I say, is based upon forecasted weather, and we get 2 main forecasts a day. And if we have weather forecasts coming in, we have hourly or as needed calls with the contracted weather services. And it's not just Mark Madrig on TV that we call. We have a specific weather service that gives us detailed area by area forecast. So and the operations are obviously set up in advance for that with manpower and equipment and what type of material you're going to send out there. Obviously operations change throughout the day and through the shift. If that happens, we'll tend to try to send out extra equipment to go and compensate for it, because if you can think, once the horse is out of the gate and Argo's left town here with all their salt, thinking, okay, we're going to salt Inks Hill, but they get up there and now it's too cold and they can't do that for some reason. The weather's shifted. Then they got to turn around, come all the way back down. No one's on the highway, so they'll send up another truck potentially to go and just sand it, and then they'll reconfigure when that other one comes back. So it's a bit of a dance. So we have to just kind of adjust as we go. Right tools for the job. We have all kinds of stuff here. In the old contract, pre-privatization, there was a lot of the trucks like you see on the bottom left there, the singles or maybe a tandem, a plow truck, with a big front plow and an underbody, and that seemed to be the flavor of the day then. Now in the top left corner, you'll see there we have like tow plows that can do multi-lane plowing all in one shot, and they'll carry sand and sometimes in the truck, and they'll also carry like an anti-icing brine in the tank on the back. And that truck can go sideways, and you can actually effectively plow 2.5, almost 3 lanes at once. It's a bit slow, but it gets the job done. So that's kind of a new innovation. YRB in Merritt has 5 of those. And they're well over $1 million a piece to get those things up and running. There's the blowers that we use, obviously front end loaders, graders with new attachments on them are always handy. There's all kinds of new ice breaking equipment too. We have one there that's got a big drum on the front of a truck with spikes on it. And they can lower that down on the compact and it just rolls. It's like a big roller and it breaks it up a bit. Then the underbody plow kicks it off to the side. But we can't do that on the main highways usually because it's too high speed, you know, so we'll do that on some side roads once in a while. But what's a ministry? What's MOTI and what's their role? That's us. We're the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. The acronym is MOTI. We monitor our contractors for performance daily and seasonally. And we plan and coordinate projects across the regions and the various districts. We respond to road emergencies, coordinate detour options to travelers. It's not the easiest thing to when a wreck happens and we have to detour. Sometimes we have to onto side roads and things like that aren't the most ideal things. So there's lots of coordination that has to go into play. Yeah, Drive BC, we try to keep Drive BC up to date as fast as possible so travelers have an information source, and we also issue travel advisories and severe warnings. Our travel advisories that we issue are kind of the legal ones, I guess, that say a sports team traveling for high school or something like that. If we issue a travel advisory publicly, then they have an option there. I don't think the school districts will allow travel at that point. So and then say a ski resort, people have an option to cancel their ski reservations if we issue a travel advisory. So we don't use them lightly. We use them only when necessary, when there's like really severe or heavy impacted things, because we like to keep the local economy and the travelers engaged in doing their business. So
Yeah, and you'll see they won't always correspond to like Environment Canada might put out an advisory in, some way, shape or form. And, sometimes, we'll issue one, we're always looking at those, but just because Environment Canada is issuing one doesn't mean it will trigger travel advisory or a severe warning from our ministry. So.
Yeah. Sometimes their warnings are they're quite general, where ours are quite a bit more specific. So they conflict a bit sometimes. But if you're looking for the proper one, like I would never comment on a weather forecast because I'm not a weather guy. And I don't really agree sometimes when the weather people comment on our road travel advisories because we have much more detailed information. So
yeah, and timing, another big factor that would go into the implementation of those. If it was a long weekend or around the Christmas holidays with anticipated much higher traffic volume.
We had 4 days of travel advisories when that freezing rain was happening around Christmas. It was the most treacherous time for road maintenance is freezing rain because you put salt on it and it melts and it dilutes and it refreezes again. And it's just, you can't, it's very, very hard to manage. So. And who can I call if I have a concern with the road condition? We encourage and expect our maintenance contractors, that's MCs, to be the trusted first point of contact for people and to report directly to them. And when you do that, make sure you have an accurate location and call the proper maintenance contractor for the area. If you get the wrong one by chance, they'll probably redirect you to somebody or give you a number for somebody that you can call. But the reason why we do that is because I'll just give you a prime example. It happened over Christmas there. I was off for 10 days or something like that. And somebody had called in and left a message on my voice machine that they had a concern with some roads. And I wasn't answering my voice message because I was on holidays, and it sat there for 10 or 12 days. When I got back, I phoned the person back right away and they were hopping mad because they didn't get a response. Well, I don't have a sander, I don't have a grader, I don't have a plow truck. So the proper process is to call that 24-hour hotline for the area that you're in. They can contact the road foreman or superintendent right on the spot, doesn't matter day, night, or any other time of the day. So they'll get the concern out there right away and they'll make sure that it's relayed and appropriately dealt with. Plus, we audit that as part of our audit process. We want to make sure that we check all the public communication records that our contractor has, because there's response times for a lot of these specifications, right? So we'll see that someone's called in at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday and they have a 4-hour response time. And then there's a paper generated form. And then we see when they took the call, who they directed to, what they did, and if they did it within the proper timeframes. So it's a key piece to contact that contractor. Here's some direct area contacts. I believe that the PowerPoint presentation is now on the stick here, so you guys can have that, and you can send that out to the directors here if you like to, and they'll have all this information. But the Thompson-Nicola district, I believe, covers 4 service areas. We have the Nicola down in Merritt, and we have Thompson here, which goes up into Bavenby, and I don't think you guys go into Avola, do you? Oh, the TNRD goes into Avola. You guys go all the way to Valemont, but that's covered in a different service area, Fort George at the bottom for our service area. So you have a different contact up there and a different maintenance contractor. Our maintenance contractors are situated 1 per service area. Like they don't span service areas usually, or they can, but they don't typically.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna have Argo and YRB in the Kamloops area. It's just Argo up here, and then it's just YRB in 14, so.
And we have a map of some of the boundaries that we can share, and then, and it's all on the ministry's website as well, but we can send along.
Yeah, I tried to see where TNRD boundaries kind of lined up with ours, and they do for the most part, but I mean, the Caribou, you guys sneak into Ashcroft, Clinton, 70 mile. So that area there is in the Caribou district, service area 16, but I put the contact there for Dawson Road Maintenance and also the operations manager up there. Doug.
What I did, I don't know if it's the right way to start off being a TNRD director, but I know Justin Van Iderson quite well from Argo, and during this rotten month that we had, I worked with him in the Knutsford area just to be the bird dog, because people up there would get a hold of me. They think I'm the road guy. So and it worked quite well to the most point. I would just text, I wouldn't phone, I'd just text a 5A's horrible here, Long Lake Road is bad, or Edith Lake or whatever. And we got through the tough times working together, and
Perfect.
I kind of enjoyed it. I got a little bit of heat, but
No, and that's that trusted first contact point. That's
you know,
fantastic.
I did it on my little Facebook page, and it really helped our area because they can't be everywhere. And you know, he'd send up a night shift and do Long Lake Road or something before the school bus came. Worked good.
Nice.
Where would the operations manager for Caribou District be located for MOTI?
100 mile.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's it. So open for some questions. Like I say, that PowerPoint, you guys can have and hold that and review it, and there's the contact pages on there, so you can grab that.
So do any of the directors have any questions? Director Graham?
Can you use your microphone? Thanks.
Here we go. The call that I had was up at Sunshine Valley when we had a bunch of ice, and the fellow even sent me a photo of the road. You'd have to have skates on to go down, but he didn't know where to call, so
That's the number.
that's the number I'll give him, and no other way to do this, huh?
That's the best way to do it. You're gonna get somebody on the phone, and if you don't call back, because they can be very busy too, right? So
Oh, yeah.
just call a few times if you don't get through on the first ring, and they'll get that message to the appropriate foreman or superintendent.
And it should be the person that's has the problem, not myself.
Well, I don't want to, this shouldn't fall on your, like, I go back to the old adage there, like, you know, I don't go to the pharmacy to get my truck looked at, right? And I don't go to the GM dealer to get my prescriptions. So people, your constituents should probably go straight to the source, which is YRB themselves or the maintenance contractors themselves, rather than funneling. I appreciate what you do. You guys take a lot of phone calls. I hear that quite often from public and people. But if you set up a web page, you can expect all kinds of stuff coming your way, and you're creating a bunch of work for yourselves. So it might be best just to direct that straight to you're gonna get the fastest response. If they're sending stuff to you, and Herb, if you're away in Mexico or somewhere, they're gonna be mad still, right? Because they're not getting through. So the best option is to go straight to the source.
And for our system, it doesn't matter. As soon as the phone call comes in from whoever it comes in from, it's, you know, it's accepted by the call center, it's dispatched out to the maintenance contractor, and then their response is in. On a day like today, they're gonna be able to respond faster because it's less chaotic out there, but if, you know, the snow's coming down, it's not gonna be an immediate response unless it's a safety issue, and then we expect, you know, that we're got some operation, but, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, and I just want to let the other directors know that we've obviously sent that letter off to the minister on a particular road in our area. I had the good fortune to speak with Sam and Connor and the Argo Road Maintenance last week. A lot of what we covered off, they explained to me, but I'm wondering specifically if the minister has yet given some direction to the department about the Toronto Creek Road and the letter from the TNRD.
Yes, so we have provided a bullets response from our district level to the minister's office is drafting and writing service response to that letter, correct? And then further to our meeting, just yesterday, actually, myself, Connor, and Argo were out on the road investigating those sources on the email that were brought, and we have some ideas that we'll be able to look into further and funding appropriately, of course, but yeah.
Thank you. Supplementary. Thank you for that. When we were talking about the road letter to the minister, there were other area directors. I think Yusuf in particular had a road that he was concerned about. And I'm thinking we're into our 4-year mandate here, and what would be most constructive relating to you on issues that we're hearing about as area directors that maybe people are actually fed up trying to reach Argo or call the maintenance provider, and they're giving us feedback. And how do we channel that constructively to you folks? Do we come up with, say, an annual report where the area directors are saying these are the worst roads in our area? Is there some kind of test that we could put together now instead of talking about it in our 4th year?
Yeah, what I'd always encourage is that, you know, like, you know, for road conditions and stuff, like we mentioned, we expect the maintenance contractors to be the first point of contact. You know, if you're hearing, if you're not getting response, that's when our team, you know, should be engaged. You know, we can do audits and we make sure we check their public communication records to make sure they're responding, but there's been issues, so we've had to address them. On the specific roads, I'd highly encourage you guys to, you know, and what I've done in the past up in the you know, north of Clearwater area, has gone out with Director Schaefer, with she's there. We'd spend a day, we'd go out, we'd tour the roads, we'd look at the issues. We'd be able to resolve some, we wouldn't be able to resolve others. Some of them weren't our issue, but, you know, just the local contact with Sam, Brad, they're on the ground all the time and know the issues, and they're both, you know, I'm not speaking for them. We've chatted about this before, but, you know, willing to spend as much time with people to try to solve the issues locally first. There's not, you know, we can't at our level can't solve everything, but we can do quite a bit. And then there might be times where you do want to send the minister's letter out, and it might have to do with some of the capital funding. You know, we only get so much funding. We, you know, try to maximize it as best we can. But yeah, so there is time to, you know, step up and send the minister's letters out. But I would encourage and offer, you know, to touch base with us as you see fit, and set up, you know, regular meetings to talk about the issues and concerns and have that local dialogue.
Yeah, no, more than happy to meet with any director about issues on roads for sure.
Yeah, and just so you know, we're not the only ones that are out for the ministry out on the roads. Like I have 4 road area managers that work out of the Merritt area and a bridge area manager. Sam, I think you've got similar.
Yeah, 3 in a bridge.
3 in a bridge here. So like, you know, we're out there doing stuff all the time. So like, yeah, we got eyes and ears out there, and chances are if you've got a concern, we've probably got a concern too. So bring them forward to through us, and those contacts are on there.
I don't know if this is the right day, but being that I'm in the Knutsford area and we have the situation that's ongoing with 5A and the future of it, and banning these trucks like a certain party wants to. Is today the day that we can talk about? I have some ideas here to fix that road up. Because obviously, if from what I read in the news, the ministry has spent a lot of money on that road. And I don't believe have any interest in banning non-local traffic. So the other option is we have to fix that road up to make it handle these trucks that are coming. Like I came to work this morning and she was wall to wall trucks, a lot of them going to Merritt to get chips. I mean, they have a right to be on that road too, but so do the citizens that live along that road need to have a safe road to travel on too. And I've got some ideas here. I don't know if today's the day, if you want to hear them or set up a meeting at a later date.
Probably not today. This is kind of a maintenance sort of
Yeah.
just an overview deal, but I'm sure that there's a time and place for that. I know it's on the radar. There's a few announcements coming out. There's a few things happening there. So be better to have that as a separate
Okay,
separate
thank you.
meeting. Thanks. You guys keep getting scooped over there.
Oh, hang on, you guys.
Okay,
Back.
Hi.
Just we've talked.
we have, yeah.
I have it on, sorry. Maybe it's not loud enough. Maybe it's my voice. I had a question. I have, my area kind of transverses a couple. We've got YRB and we've got, I believe it's Dawson. I have residents complaining that you can literally see where the division line is. Why is that?
It's because the two contractors don't coordinate their responses. So each service area has their important roads. They may be the same classification, but they might not be the same hierarchy within the service area. But Highway 12 you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about Highway 1.
Highway 1, okay, so north or south?
So we have, well, I'm not talking about Highway 1, I'm talking about Highway 12, I'm talking
Yeah.
about Highway 8. But what happens is literally residents tell me they can see where the division is because the level of service on one side is totally different than the other.
Right,
And so
yeah,
why isn't there consistency?
they don't, if it's snowing, they don't show up at the same time, turn around, and then go back. This guy will come up, he'll turn around and then go back, and then maybe an hour later, this guy comes up, he turns around, he goes back. So there's always gonna be, you're gonna be able to tell usually when it's snowing, especially. Summertime, you wouldn't really notice because you wouldn't know the mowing stuff there, but they can't possibly do that, plan at the same time. Because they just have other, like the Trans-Canada, for instance, in Lytton is a higher classification than Highway 12. If it's snowing out, they're gonna be hitting Trans-Canada before they hit Highway 12. And then conversely for service area 16, because I used to be my area up there, they would come down Highway 12 and it would be one of their higher routes. So it might be better on that side on a certain snowstorm. Whereas maybe the snowstorm's not hitting in Lytton and they can service the low end better. It just depends when the trucks meet each other.
Supplemental, this is consistent.
Mhm.
It's not a one-off,
Yeah, every snowstorm is gonna be like that. They don't coordinate their,
but it's always the one side.
Yeah,
What
but
appears.
and it also, as long as the contractor's meeting the specification like that 4, 6, 8, 25. There's nothing in our contracts that say they have to coordinate with the other side, and one contractor might be using just like winter abrasives, one might be using salt sand, so their approach as to how they're maintaining might reflect on the road conditions you see. But again, as long as they're meeting that specification, one can be exceeding the specification and one can be meeting it, but.
and it looks like someone's dropping the ball, but they're actually still in
It
spec.
does.
And then the other thing too, in that particular spot, sorry, is the weather. Like the Caribou is a bit colder up there in the Lytton, Lillooet area. And you're warming up as you get into Lytton. And quite often, they'll be compact on the north end of the Highway 12. And where it's bared off on the low end because it's a bit warmer down there. So there's geographical factors too. And then,
The other way around is what I'm hearing.
oh, is that right?
Yeah, consistently. Ditto when you're going up Highway 1.
Okay,
Can I ask another question? Okay, the last question is, I would really like you to come and visit me. I've got a couple of roads I want to show you.
sure.
Okay?
We'll talk.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Lee, I'm area P, so just two sort of almost information questions primarily. And then one longer term question. One is potholes. So Shuswap Road would be a great example, east headed towards the Pritchard area from the interchange at Sun Rivers. Who do they, i.e. the people that get stuck in them, who are they phoning about potholes? As you know, that particular road is consistently has challenges with that.
I can take that
Yeah.
one. Yeah, so great news. Shuswap Road will be getting paved this year.
Paved?
Yes, so that is
Holes filled and paved.
so yeah, there you go. From Sun Rivers through to Lafarge, which is the bad pothole section.
Yes.
It's a weak road next to the river there. So we are working with Tecumloops on ARC stuff and all that for sure. But in terms of potholes in general, again, the maintenance contractor to contact them directly in order to get response to fill them. If there is damage to a vehicle or something, the ministry does have a claims process where that constituent can go through and provide a claim.
Excellent. Okay, so the secondary question to that was Argo, of course, is managing up to the bridge. And then just the name of the contract. Sorry, this should know this, but from going all the way out to the Pritchard area along that.
You bet. So Argo does extend on the other side of the bridge as well, but the Pritchard end is AIM.
It is AIM.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Asiona.
So here's the longer term question. There's been a lot of conversation about escape routes out of the Sun Rivers area as an example. And one of the conversations is around establishing long-term a roundabout. And I heard that a great deal. So question would be, in fairness, just in the confines of this room, is that a decade-long project for us to aspire to? Or is it more than that?
And sorry, this is for an access route out of Sun Rivers.
Correct. So there's been a lot of conversation around what is the escape route, obviously put on the heels of the Juniper situation, right?
Yeah, well, so there is a roundabout. I was just in a meeting earlier this week about it. That is developer driven through Sun Rivers there. That's being planned, connecting to Shuswap Road there.
On the east side of the Sun Rivers development, probably.
So coming down from kind of the existing access
Yes.
Onto it. But as far as like connecting on to Shuswap Road, I don't think necessarily that would.
Well, that's under the jurisdiction of Tecumloops.
Yeah.
So they would be the land use planners and supporting the development out there. So that would be a good question for them.
Okay, so that corner area that fronts the highway, not the Shuswap Road, is partly where that conversation. So that's a longer term conversation between Tecumloops and yourselves, because it would encroach on the main highway as well.
Anything that would connect to like Shuswap Road or the highway, they would have to come and chat with us through the development approval
So who
process.
within your group, when folks ask me to kind of engage in that conversation, I'll just contact one of you folks and you'll redirect. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to myself, Sam, and then I can put
Okay.
you in
Thank you very much.
appropriate contact with that.
Yeah. Thank you.
My name's Lee as well. And I'm area B, so that's Blue River and Avola. My question is around phoning in with road complaints. If there's complaints and it goes directly to the general manager who's in Blue River, does that get recorded in your system, or does it have to go through a different line? Like if someone texts the manager, is that recorded?
Yes, they should be. There's every contractor has a website as well. And if you want to direct your people to their websites, the contacts are on that page as well for that. And then it's an email in, and then it's a paper, it's an electronic file.
So emailing might be, like, I'm just concerned that a lot of the reports and complaints from people potentially are not getting tracked.
Sure.
And in that case, I just would like to understand how
Yeah.
people should be complaining to ensure that it is tracked so that there can be repercussions if
I
needed.
think if you have something that's very urgent, a phone call is best.
Yeah.
If you have something that's kind of an ongoing sort of a thing there, and an email and starting that correspondence record is the best way to go.
Yeah,
Just depends on what the situation is, but by all means, you can do both. You can, because when we do our audits,
yeah,
we pull out the PCR books and they're usually this thick and we just start opening them up and looking at random ones and seeing what's on there. If we have an idea that there's a certain thing going on, it seems to be a common thing. And maybe that's something we have to talk to all our contractors about a bit more, is to nail down their response center calls.
mhm,
Yeah,
So,
I can speak for Argo in my area here that when anyone calls in on their big 4-star is their answering service, their hotline,
Yeah.
that does create an electronic document that gets emailed out to all their managers. As well as, like you say, if it's a safety item directly, they'll go on the radio
Yeah.
right to that foreman so they can deal with it. So all those are cataloged. I can't speak for Fort George district there. So
Yeah.
again, Grant Erickson's the ops manager up there. So I definitely recommend reaching them out directly to see how that contractor
Yeah.
up there does it.
okay, and then I'm curious for a contractor, like, how many non-compliance issues can they have? And what are their repercussions? Like, if we're on 10-year term contracts and the contractor is not living up to the standards, or which I don't know whether they are or not, obviously, but I've heard a lot of complaints and I drive the roads as well and don't believe that they are. So what is the repercussion, or how does that?
yeah, you hit on a couple of key things there. People may not think they're meeting the standards for
Mhm.
whatever's out there, but when we do our audits and our monitoring and stuff, that we check the actual against the contract that they're obligated to fulfill. So your expectations might be at this level, but this kind of the point of this whole conversation here, is just to get the minds thinking about this. And by all means, bring your concerns forward. What repercussions are there? We issue non-conformance reports to them, and then they get tracked. And at the end of the day, it hits them financially if they have a whole bunch of non-compliance reports on file there that we've found and investigated. They're formal and they start hitting them in the pocketbook.
Mhm.
If there's some really, they have to be really serious, like major non-conformances, like there has to be some for default. Like, I don't think there's ever been a default in the province. There might have been one.
There's been one or two or over the years, like the
But-
contractors actually lost the contract, but
Mhm.
that is very severe and would take a lot of.
I think if that happens, and that happened in my service area, I think my head would be rolled too. I'd be gone, because we got to be catching that stuff long before it gets to that point, right?
Mhm.
And again, we measure the metrics on everything that's in the contract. So yeah, I'd like to see a lot more maintenance on some things, but I go out there and I go, what's going on? Oh, they're meeting specification. So it's the way it is, right? So, and I think, you know what, just something to be, I know we're running out of time, Scott. I see a fidget in there, so I'll get off the podium here quick, but there's something that's weird about road maintenance. Everybody feels like they've got to, like, this is like, they know everything about it, and it needs to happen right now. And all of our devices, we have the phones that you all have on your tables here and your computers and that. You can go on and look like downtown Hong Kong at a webcam and get a live feed of it right now. You can find 24-hour news at any second of the day. But we're bound by Mother Nature, right?
Mhm.
So Mother Nature is not instant. So when it starts to snow, we can't have a plow truck every kilometer. And if we get stuck behind traffic, then we can't plow the roads in front of it. So it gets pretty tough, but you just have to understand that and just keep in mind that the context of the timescales. So our contract, our latest round in 2019 was based on the highest standards in North America. We canvassed all the United States that get snow and everything like that. We found what they do, and we based our response times and all that kind of stuff on that. So it's fairly well, it's a much better contract 2019 forward. So
Mhm.
if there's still going to be some issues, by all means, call us. We're on the contact. And if there's no more questions, thanks for your time. One more.
Hi, good morning. Sorry, this is Yusuf on Zoom here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, yeah, so I'm director for Area A, Wells Grey Country, out of Clearwater here. So I have one particular request and another just, would like your thoughts on. One is, with the, COVID in the last few years, a lot of people are moving out from the cities to rural areas. And everything that you described in your presentation, actually, Sam was very nice to have met with me prior actually to my oath of office. And, it all makes logical sense. There's, systems and guidelines and it's very fair and logical. But I think some of the issues sometimes is people moving out to, our electoral rural areas are not aware of these. They're used to, Vancouver standards and such. So I wonder if, there can be a bit of a educational kind of campaign or information campaign from the MOTI or even the contractors. I'm not sure if that's in their contract to educate the residents of the service levels.
Yeah, great question. We see that all the time, especially in the rural communities. It's more and more prevalent. We have websites available with lots of different sort of podcasts and lots of different sort of videos and things like that that people can search through, look at there. But as for a bit of an education process for everybody that moves out there, it might be a bit tricky, but I'm sure that we can, if you bring that forward to Sam can, we can work together to try to figure out something that can, you can have an easy presentation cheat sheet or something for people to understand. Sometimes it's pretty hard to get that because they're coming into these smaller communities and building these monster homes and things like that, and their expectation levels are a little bit higher. But it's kind of tough sometimes. It's a tough one to manage. So I feel for you guys in that position because you're probably taking a bit of the heat for that. So
yeah. And the realtor is probably not letting them know that information either.
Okay, no, thank you very much. And actually, in that case, I probably would take some of that, educational workload, and perhaps even the cheat sheets. I can, make some myself and hand those out to constituents at my next, community meetings. And then my next, general broad question is, I understand, there's the road classifications, and I discussed this with Sam in particular to one of our roads in Area A, Dunn Lake Road. We're limited in terms of resources, what we can do with that road for surface expectations because of its classification. And in order to move that up in classification, there's all these, procedure studies and whatnot, and actual engineering improvements that needs to be done to the road, all costing, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. Again, with the trend we've had in the last few years with more population moving out to rural electoral areas, I wonder, would it be our MLAs who, we have to sort of influence for more, funding, and like, where do we go from hey, this is the expectation level, this is the guideline, but where do we go from that to say, okay, maybe we need to improve the expectation and offer more? How do we get to that process?
Yeah, for stuff like that, I mean, it would be, kind of lobbying government at large, and, government at large would then have to make the decision on, are we going to put more money into transportation, or are we going to keep, like healthcare or schools, or, it's those kind of questions that where our funding comes from. The road classification changes. Our categories are fairly broad. So even though there might be like lots developing along a route over time, it does take quite a bit to go from like a class C road to a class B road. Like a class C road, like Dunn Lake Road, the next step up is a class B, and that would be like the Trans-Canada Highway out by Savinoff, just for context, right? So it's pretty significant, land use changes and traffic volume changes that drive a road classification. They happen for sure, but they're fairly static, and it does take quite a bit of change in an area for you to hit that threshold where it would jump up a little bit. The ones that are easier to go up or down is, you add a school bus to a route, that's an automatic trigger. If there's a whole bunch of heavy industrial traffic that gets added to a route for a sustained period, that's an automatic trigger. But yeah, growth based on development takes quite It's a pretty big threshold to hit.
Yeah, and I could just touch on road improvement piece as well. So Brad touched on the quantified plan earlier. And within that, graveling, road base repairs, culvert maintenance. So those are all items that we have a set annual budget within our maintenance contract that we have for all of the roads within that service area. So it's up to the contractor working with the ministry to plan where those annual funds are spent. But those can be, you know, improvements that are on those specific routes throughout. You know, the ministry, we also get funding as well, which we can put projects together for, again, graveling or incremental other projects along the route as well. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Anything that comes up, you guys can call us so we can talk further. We don't want to take away your whole meeting. We probably already took 10-15 minutes longer than we should have, but appreciate your time and having us here. And I got to say that Trish and I spoke a while ago, and we were going to go have that meeting, and then I think we discussed it. And you said it'd be a good idea to get everybody in the room together talking about it. So thanks for that. It's kind of got going there. So
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm sure everybody has asked all the questions, and it's great to have you here and catch us up on what's happening with Modi. Thank you very much.
thanks for having us. Cheers.
I liked his measuring stick.
Yeah, I was wondering if they're gonna leave that.
He might leave it for us, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next on our agenda. Could we continue with the meeting? Yeah. Yeah. Next on our agenda is the fire mark. It's a presentation by Chris Carrier. Oh, pardon me, Jamie, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just before I turn it over to Chris, I just wanted to quickly introduce him. So Chris Carrier, we met with Jason and I a month ago to introduce fire mark and this model that I'll let him introduce. So following basically our discussion, we thought the next step would be to introduce this concept to this group. And as he'll explain, the way the fire mark would work, it would impact TNRD fire protection areas that we operate. So the reason it's coming to this committee is all our fire protection areas that we operate are within the electoral areas. So I will then turn it over to Chris.
Good morning, everyone. And Jamie, thank you very much for the introduction. Can everyone hear me fine? Great.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So I'm not as familiar with Zoom as I am with Microsoft Teams. So I think I have the PowerPoint pulled up. Can you tell me if you can see it?
No, we can't.
No.
Okay.
Should be a share screen button there.
Yep.
And now we're seeing your email.
Yeah, I'm just going to pull up the PowerPoint. There we go. How's that?
No, still your email.
Just my email. Okay. That.
Yeah, if you try just open the attachment on that email screen, it should
Yeah, that's what I was doing, Jamie.
Yeah, or if you have two screens going.
It's opening for me. Can you see it right now?
No, we're not seeing anything yet.
Oh, how embarrassing. That's what happens when you're an old guy.
I have to pull that window over to that laptop.
Yeah, if you have two screens going, you might have to switch where your presentation is to show up. Yeah, I could try pull it up here, Chris. I just got it from.
I just, can you see that now?
Yes, there we go. We're good.
Okay. All right. My apologies for the technology concern. Hello, everybody. It's a nice first impression I've made. It's just loading. Okay, Firemark was created by a number of retired and semi-retired insurance adjusters just over 11 years ago. And I came on board in 2011. We started with 0 municipal clients, and we now have over 140 clients coast to coast to coast. We have large urban, small urban, rural, unincorporated. We do have one other regional district model in BC. We also have a First Nations community as well as a client. For us, it doesn't matter how the municipal structure is incorporated. As long as they have a fire service that they operate, there's funds that we can recover for you in response to an insured peril. The Canadian insurance market, there's about 192, 193 operators in the market. 34 of those are pretty much exclusive to Ontario, but you'll see the top 20 insurance providers in the country there. So Intact is still #1 and Desjardins has moved to #2. But you can see that the top 20 represent about 84% of the marketplace. Almost all property insurance policies in Canada have, under the additional coverages section, fire department service charges. So this is an example of some policy wording. And in this case, this particular policy, they have $25,000 worth of eligible costs to be recovered in response to an insured peril. And a structured fire is an insured peril. There's also a lot of smaller policies out there. A lot of the smaller mutuals, especially in Ontario, have $1,000 worth of coverage, even though we have seen some movement to increase that coverage to $3,000 and $5,000. But as I said, the coverages vary actually as low as $500. There is one company out there with $500, all the way to unlimited coverage as well. So I've shared this information with your staff, and what we do is we invoice on behalf of the municipal fire service, and we invoice the insurance company the details of the incident, and we recover subject to the limits of the policy. So if it was a $15,000 cost that was incurred by the fire service, and there was only $10,000 worth of coverage, we can recover only $10,000. Essentially, the municipality is required to pass a bylaw. I've sent a couple of draft examples to your staff for review, but you need to unlock the insurance coverage because the contract of insurance is designed in such a way as to protect the insurance carrier from a large loss incident retroactively. So most policies have the wording that says a legal responsibility, local ordinance, a requirement to pay, and that's the language that they've protected themselves and insulated themselves from, once again, that large loss retroactively type of claim. And the bylaws are enforceable. The Insurance Bureau of Canada is on record publicly of stating that the bylaws that the municipalities do pass are legal and enforceable. And the bylaw, almost all municipal bylaws, when you're looking at cost recoveries and fees, have an element of a component where it does, if the person refuses to pay, you can then, of course, put it on the tax roll, becomes a debt to the municipality. Like your constituents, not everyone is created equally, and neither is insurance companies. Maybe I should say your roads, since I was watching that presentation from MTO. Most of the constituents that we deal with are great. Some are less great, and some of them we probably would never invite to your home to have dinner with you. And I say that as a former mayor myself. In this case, we have an insurance company that operates coast to coast to coast. And in Ontario, I must say in Ontario, they refuse to pay unless the municipality puts it on the tax roll. Now, that's a less than consumer friendly stance to take. Thus far, it's not happening with them in Alberta or Saskatchewan, but it is a tack that they're trying to avoid payment in Ontario. So we ask our municipal clients, if that happens, we work through with them to send a letter to the insurance adjuster and say, look, we can go through this step if you really want us to. We encourage you just to pay the bill. It is your responsibility to do so. I've reviewed the cost recovery process with the fire chief and with Jamie as well. Essentially what we want or would like is a copy of the standard incident report. We have a database that we have of the insurance companies and their professionals that we access, so we know to whom we're speaking to or interacting with on the other end of the file. We have a database of over 1,600 policy wordings. The average recovery for us takes about 13 to 14 weeks. The shortest recovery has been 8 days, and the longest recovery on a very complex industrial fire took just under 4 years. So that's a long time for a municipality to wait for funds and to look after a file. However, we did that on behalf of our municipal clients, and we did recover in that particular case close to $40,000 for our municipal client. The monies stay within the fire services budget for 3 broad category programs: public education, personnel training, and or capital purchases. Your province, like Ontario, I actually like your municipal act. I think it's actually better than Ontario's. I've studied some of the municipal acts across the country through the public admin program at Western. I like your regional district model, but the most essential component is that the municipal act allows you to have natural persons powers. So, and the test in applying your legislative authority is really the test of reasonableness through the natural persons powers. Is it reasonable for a local government to pass a local bylaw to unlock an insurance contract where the insurance contract stipulates that if you want this money, you have to pass a local bylaw in order to access it? The test of reasonableness is well met. And the answer, of course, is yes, it is reasonable for you to do so. Insurance rates, you will get some pushback from the insurance industry. We haven't been doing that without some pushback for the last 11 years. So I just wanted to emphasize how your insurance company calculates your premium. They look at the risk exposure to the property, and they pool you, the property that they're insuring with all of their whole portfolio, and all of you share the risk. Here's an example of a policy that has $1,500 was the premium. The home was insured for $382,000. There's a whole bunch of lists of coverages, and that totals up, because you can identify the premiums, for a total of 98% of the total premium for that home. And this was my home back in 2015. The remainder of my $1,500 bill was $25. And in that, at the time, it included $2,000 of fire department coverage within my policy. So you can see that this portion and a long list of other coverages is a small portion of the overall cost. And our research indicates that for every $1,000 worth of coverage, you're paying between $1.90 and $3.40 for coverage. So we just rounded up to $2 to $4. So I'm saying to you, for me to have that coverage, it was $4 or $8 of that total $25 of leftover catch-all premium in that policy. In this case here, what I would like to emphasize is that we have an insurance company who wrote $18.8 million in insurance premiums. It's small mutual, and they had to pay out about $10.8 million in losses. They had 3 insured perils, and they only had $1,000 worth of coverage, and that represented 0.28% of their overall payouts. So I want to emphasize to you that the fire department coverage is a teeny tiny portion of the overall coverage that an insurance company will pay out in losses. So you'll see it also with insuring the risk. In setting the premium, it covers the claim costs. Fire department costs are included in the claim costs. So they're also calculated to cover taxes, operating expenses, and expected profits. So it's much like when you're setting your municipal budgets, that you are asserting and assuming, I guess, in some respects, what your professional advice and expert advice from your staff and what your costs will be. And that helps you to establish your tax rate for your municipality. And the same with the premium. They've already calculated that they should be paying out on fire department costs. Our company is designed to recover those costs so they don't continue to keep it as a windfall profit center. And I'll just go through this quickly. Our company remains steadfast that our cost recovery program will have 0 impact on premiums to your citizens, and that is important. You will hear language from some people in the insurance industry that the more we pay out in premiums, the higher that we're going to have to charge our customers for money. So I want you to take just a quick moment to think about the fact that your home and your contact and the contents of your home as an insurable part of your overall premium is a variable cost. It's subject to inflationary pressure. So I might have $500,000 worth of house and property insured, the contents, but that might be $600,000 now because of what inflation has done to it. So the insurance company may have to pay more. So in establishing a premium, the next time they may establish it on $600,000 worth of value. The fire department cost is a fixed cost. It is $2,000 5 years ago. It might be $2,000 today, and it will be $2,000 5 years from now. There is no inflationary pressure on the fire department costs. It is a fixed cost to the premium under the additional coverages section. And once again, it will have 0 impact in setting the overall premium rates. So in asking your constituents who do pay taxes for fire services, we're also requesting that insurance companies pay those department expenses and to honor the coverage that they've been charging your residents for. There is no deductible applied to this section of the policy, so there's no harm, no foul to your policy, to your stakeholder, your constituent. And I've already covered this section. We do get municipalities who ask, why can't we just do it ourselves? And you'd have very good, competent professional staff. We have a number of large urban clients that have within their treasury department insurance experts, adjusters who work for them directly. They're the claims and slips and falls specialists, legal liability specialists, and this is a property coverage. And so they've even asked us to do it because they don't want to bring in the in-house staff to cover the expertise it requires for a property claim. You also get very complicated incidents. So this is an incident that occurred in June 2014. If you're familiar with Ontario, near Base Borden, the military base near Angus, Ontario, which is part of Essa Township. There were 103 properties that were impacted by a tornado. And in this case, it was 41 different insurance companies. Most people I've talked to, when you say there's 103 properties, might think there could be 10 or 15 different insurance companies. No, it was 41 different insurance companies. It took us, we received the files 11 months after the incident. We're not going to rush out to the scene and try to get information. That's not what we do. So you had to deal with your constituents. They've just been impacted by a very serious event in their life, and we can wait. We have up to 2 years to receive and work on a file or to recover on a file. It took us 10 months to recover. And what we were able to do for Essa Township is not only did we recover for our municipal client, we've also recovered for the 4 other departments from neighboring municipalities who responded and supplied on mutual aid and automatic aid on that. So it took us a while to recover all the funds, but we were able to recover 100% of the costs to that municipality for that tragic event. And there is some of the colleagues across the country. As a matter of fact, it's always fun to drop off money to the fire department and deliver it to the chief. Once again, having been a mayor and a councillor, I know how important it is to fund the fire service, and I know how happy they are to receive the funds. So that is the presentation very quickly, and I would very much like to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Do any of the directors have any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I'm just curious, how does your company get paid to do this?
Yes, I kind of glossed over that. I did speak to that with your staff. So of the 140 clients that we do have, it does not matter, once again, to us, the size of the company. So what we receive is we receive 30% of the funds that we recover. 70% are returned to you, and we retain 30% for ourselves. If we work on a file and there is no recovery, then we get nothing. There is no annual, there is no minimum. The only time our company is compensated is if you receive compensation.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm also curious, in my area, Blue River, they have an improvement district, so they actually don't fall under the TNRD. Do you work with improvement districts, and would they have to have a specific bylaw in order for you to work with them?
I'm going to assume, not knowing your municipal structure as well as I do Ontario's, that your improvement district is something like an unincorporated district. So under your provincial legislation, if they have a board that governs them and they're entitled to enact a contract with you, the TNRD, for fire service, then yes, the local board can pass a bylaw so that we can access their insurance coverages. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, if I may, improvement district legislation is a little bit different than ours, so we would have to check.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe just one thing that Chris didn't mention, and Chris, if you could reiterate, I know the company's expanding westward, and you have some clients in British Columbia right now, and the District of Barrier is one of them. Is that correct?
Yes, the District of Barrier is our first client in your beautiful province. I was at the BC Fire Conference last June, and I presented to a number of fire chiefs at that conference as a special seminar. And I am right now interacting, excuse me, I'm interacting with a number of communities in your province. Like many businesses, COVID threw a monkey wrench into our expansion and travel plans, because normally what I do is I fly out and meet with clients, and that was put on hold for a little over 2 years. And so those expansion plans west certainly have, we're now open and excited to be expanding westward once again. We do have an office in Calgary. I would like to emphasize that. So we do have staff in Calgary. I love flying to Calgary and then working from there, and then flying out to BC. So I don't want you to think that you're far away. In today's modern age, you're not that far away.
Thanks, and Chair, if there's no further questions, I just have a follow-up. As I introduced, we've already met with Chris and talked about kind of a little more of the details on the operations side here. So we wanted to bring it to this committee for introduction and questions. And so if this committee wants to make a recommendation that staff bring a report forward to the board, that would be appropriate to give us direction to kind of take the next step on this. Director Laird, I think the mic's on, Chair.
Thanks for your presentation. It was good. And obviously, there'll be some more conversation happening between you and the TNRD. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity, and I want to congratulate you, each of you, on your elected public service. Having served in Ontario for 13 years, I know how much the responsibility can weigh at times, but I also know how much fun it is. And I encourage you to enjoy those very special moments. There will be many of them over your term of office. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is the TNRD Smart Grant Application and Program Update. Is that Mr. Varga? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair. So yeah, we wanted to come and give an update on our Fire Smart program. And so we'll have just about a 10 to 15 minute presentation here, and I'll have time for questions following that. So before I introduce and turn it over to Jeremy, I just wanted to give a bit of a background of how we kind of ended up here. So this is a brand new program. So April 2022 was when the board approved the creation of a new position within our Fire Protection Services Department, and that is the Regional Training Officer. So the model that was presented initially to this committee, and the recommendation went forward to the board, was that position have two roles. One, to work directly with our 9 fire departments and administering the training programs. And the other component of their job would be to administer a region-wide Fire Smart program, which would be stress region-wide, not just within our fire protection areas, but to be able to administer the program to unprotected areas. In the past, up until the creation of this position, really the Fire Smart program, and Jeremy will talk more details about the program. It's a provincial-led program, but we didn't have any staff capacity to sort of manage it. So it was managed on the side of the emergency program coordinator's desk, and there was some sort of localized programs being delivered through local fire chiefs and other volunteers in communities, but not a regional approach. That said, we saw models in other regional districts where they had a regional program, and I guess to be blunt, we had a lot of interest, direct contacts from communities wondering when and why we haven't initiated a region-wide program, and that's why we brought it forward to the board last year. So yeah, 2023 will be the very first year that we're actually moving forward and actually have budget and mandate to deliver this program. So Jeremy Denny, who's standing behind me, we hired him into this newly created position in July of last year. So he is our regional training officer within our Fire Protection Services Department. He has 11 years of structural fire protection experience from previous roles. So currently he works with our 8 volunteer fire departments, as well as he's working directly with our new Monte Creek recruits and training them through the existing Pritchard Volunteer Fire Department. And in addition to his day job with us, he's also still an active member and continues to serve in his own community as the senior captain and training officer for the Shuswap Fire Department in Blind Bay. So I will turn it over to Jeremy.
Hello, everyone. So just to touch base quickly, thank you for having me. I'm pretty new at this, so forgive me if I stumble a bit. Has everybody heard of Fire Smart before? Okay. Fire Smart is a principle is nothing new. It actually first came about in the mid-40s with the campaign south of our border with Smokey the Bear. And most of us grew up on Smokey the Bear and only you can prevent forest fires, and it's pretty much staple into most of our minds. Fire Smart, the program, provincial wide, federally and provincially designed, is however quite new. It's in its infant stages. We're only entering its 5th year. And with that, there is constant evolution with this program. Its main focus is to make sure that our communities, risk reduction and resiliency measures go up. As we've seen, with the exception of the 2022 fire season, which was the lowest since 1952 in British Columbia, the previous decade combined was higher than the 100 years previous to that. The devastation levels are going up and up and up, and minus last year's blip, which those of us with boots on the ground and uniform were really appreciative of Mother Nature last year. We can't rest on those laurels. With Fire Smart moving forward, it is and can only be administered by local governing bodies. So whether that's local government, First Nations, municipalities. Fire Smart itself, one of the major things of that evolution that I described is that it's actually been designed and the legal language has been written around municipalities specifically. So regional districts like our own, there has been a lot of massaging, especially in the last 12 months. Right now, as we speak, the UBCM, the Union of BC Municipalities, which is the corridor for the funds and the grants that come through to us, just yesterday issued a major change for us for 23 after the fact of and after the deadlines for the grants to be processed. That's how much this Fire Smart program is evolving. It's evolving all the time. So things that I may tell you today or we learn today may change or alter as we move forward through the future. And it's something that I really want to reiterate through this committee, that you guys understand that this is something that is ever changing and evolving. And it's evolving in positive directions. It's evolving because we're learning, or the province is learning, and we're finding this is not working well here. We're going to expand and move it over to from Group A to Group B so that our citizens are getting better education and more protection. UBCM and BC Wildfire are the oversight for the entire grant process and the implementation of the program. We can't do this without them, and we can't get the grants without them. As Jamie mentioned, this is TNRD's very first year of ever being part of the Fire Smart program. It had a substantial application process to go through. It took us just over 4 months to complete the application. And within that time, we had more than a dozen changes from those two governing bodies, BC Wildfire and UBCM. So that evolution is very, very real, and it continues. The largest part of the application, of course, is the funds to procure those funds. The funds that we're talking about for this program that are available to us, or possibly available to us if we are successful with the application, is no small number. It totals for the entirety of the TNRD an initial $200,000 for the TNRD as a regional district whole for the implementation, and then a $50,000 grant allowable to every RD. EA, which gives us a total of $700,000 for just 2023 for this program to be initiated. Now that is a lot of money, and it sounds like a lot of money. However, the way it is structured and broken down, one thing that is required by the province before a Fire Smart program is allowed to be accepted is that there is something called a CWRP, community wildlife resiliency program that has to be established. That has to be done by a third party a contractor or sorry, was that better word you gave me there, you little consultant, JV? The consultant, it's a very, very long process. To give you an example, this is from the regional district of Nanaimo. This is their CWRP, just completed, just established and approved. This is 2022, 148 pages of very in-depth details throughout the regional district. That's one. Fire Smart requires us to have the Fire Smart grants requires us to have one per EA. We have to do 10 in 1 year. And to give a concept, the average is 1 to 3, which is a fair ask of any regional district in a year. For this program to move forward in 24, these have to be completed. So the vast majority of this year, we'll be working with our consultants on whoever that is, who we get out of the VC bid through the year to get those CWRPs done as efficiently and effectively as possible for each one of you, so that in our 2024 application, we will have that completed and we will have that $50,000 per EA available specifically for that EA. This year, that $50,000, the vast majority of it, 32 of it, goes and is only specifically toward getting that done for you. Okay. The other 18 is going strictly into education purposes, and it's getting divided amongst all of you. Okay. So it's quite a long and arduous process. The second aspect of the application for this year was inside that 200,000 that I described, will be the hiring of a temporary full-time regional coordinator for this service. He or she will conduct the educational expectations laid out through the Fire Smart program. They and myself will build the educational parameters for the 2023 year. And we will be hopefully having some interaction with all 10 of you so we can best serve your constituents in that education. Okay. Where we're at. Oh, yes. And we will be working in hand with BC Wildfire throughout this entire year through this first process. This is going to be our largest year of learning for ourselves within the TNRD, both at the administration level and at the education level. Okay. So we will get there, but bear with us as we get through this first year. Okay. Where that takes us is once we're through this first year and we get all those CWRPs done, those are the really important point for us to move forward, to us to maintain acquiring these funds to run this program, which this program at the end of the day is for your constituents and our citizens' safety. Okay. The wildfires are getting larger, they're getting more dangerous. The interface between the Crown lands and where we are living, we are breaking into those areas more and more. We're moving out of the cities and we're moving into these countries, and we're trying to have these calm, beautiful serene places to live. But those things come at a price, and that price is where we live. Well, we don't get hurricanes, but we get wildfires. So some of the things moving forward for 2024 and beyond, once we get through this very uphill year, that 32,000 that we're spending on every EA, or that we've applied to spend to get these CWRPs done for you, that will be open now for other options once that CWRP is completed. Okay. We will have 4 years without having to do another CWRP because they're required every 5 years. Okay, so we will have 4 years that we can apply year after year after year with that CWRP completed. And at that point, this is where the communication between myself and the 10 of you, whether as a committee or individually, we need to start having, hopefully mid this year, I've spent some decent amount of time through the late summer and early fall on the ground in multiple electoral areas, speaking to the different people, different committees who are trying to set up their own fire smart or trying to just get themselves prepared because of places like Lytton that have experienced devastation. There are options and programs available to us through the Fire Smart once those CWRPs are established. What you see on the board there are the top 4 that were brought to me as, can we do this? How can we do this? When can we do this? But also, those are also the top 4 in the province. This is done all throughout BC and Canada, and these are actually, if this is consistent across the board. So the first question is, how do we get our rebate program up and running? How do we get that $500 per citizen every year? I need to stress this right now. This is not a tax rebate program, okay? Most people that I've talked to on the ground, for whatever reason, the miscommunication or misunderstanding around it is that it's a tax base. So as long as you do that, you fill out the required paperwork and send it, and you'll get that back off your taxes. That is not how that works. That program will be initiated and set up by us here at the TNRB. And that comes directly out of that $50,000 in your EA. So it is finite, okay? So there's an asterisk there and it says up to 500. There's a reason it's up to. We have to set those parameters, okay? And when I say we, I mean our Fire Smart coordinator and myself. We have to figure out those coordinators. That's why we need those conversations with you when we go down the road later in the year. I'll reach out to each of you as we get there. Because we can't, it is very finite, and we still have to run the education programs and everything else within that. Now, if you have 1,000 people where you live, very rarely are you going to get 1,000 people jump on board. We might get 100 jump on board to want to work with those programs, because those programs, it takes work. You don't just apply for something and get it. This is a cleanup program, essentially, cleaning up your personal space or your business space to make it fire smart. But that is the number one request out there is for that rebate program. Okay, so it is the one thing that we are working very hard to get these CWRPs done, so we have these funds available for your constituents next year. Yes.
Hi, Jeremy. Jim Smith from Area E. We've already got some Fire Smart captains and programs that have been approved and underway. Is that I've been asked whether or not that $500 is in the account and is available to them for other projects.
Okay, that's a good question. There are existing Fire Smart programs inside the boundaries of the TNRD right now. Okay, TNRD itself has no Fire Smart program at this point in time. We have applied for it. The ones that already previously exist will act as islands unto themselves outside of the TNR or inside the TNRD. Okay, so if you have the village of Clinton has applied for a Fire Smart program, their Fire Smart program and their funds are allocated to them and them only. Okay, we don't have access to that, and we don't have any control over that. Now, when I started this at the beginning, I said that just yesterday a major change came, and that major change was partnerships are now allowed. So overlapping is now allowed. Before, those islands unto themselves, we weren't allowed to go inside and do educational work there or take any of our monies in there, and they weren't allowed to come out of their zones. That, as of yesterday, was dropped. However, it was yesterday. So there are no rules and no regulations around it yet. And having spoken with UBCM yesterday on the phone, because I knew one of you would have that question, they didn't have an answer for me to give to you. How? Okay, so that it is evolving literally as I'm standing here talking to you. So their program, if they've applied for and they have been successful in procuring a Fire Smart program as it stands in this moment, the monies they have been given, that's all they have to run, including that rebate program, if they so choose to run that rebate program inside their community.
So the money then has been allocated and been given to them?
If they
Because
have,
the-
yeah, if they have been approved for the process. So what happens with Fire Smart is when you're, set in your application. Once that application is done, you get approved. If you get approved within, I believe it's 30 days or 60 days, you get 50% of the year's dollars that were allowed to you. Okay, so if they've been approved and they don't have their dollar factor yet, they're in that waiting zone of it just being processed. But unfortunately, that has nothing to do with us at this point in time, the TNRD aspect of it. They'll have to report to their UNBC administrator that approved their Fire Smart program.
Because that's where the original money
That's where they
came
went
through.
through.
All right, so they would have received 50% upfront, or 50% would have come in one
The
installment?
initial installment will be 50% of whatever they were approved for the year.
Okay, so if they've received that 50%, then they can assume that there's another 50% in the pot.
That's coming, yes. Now, how they allocate the remaining 50%, actually, I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. And with that specific one, as we move forward, there'll be more, now will be more overlap. So hopefully in a couple of weeks to a month, I will maybe have a better answer. We could touch base and I might be able to help you out with that a little bit more. Educational assistance, education and assistance on the how-to for Fire Smart. That's one of the larger ones. It kind of mixes with community events there, because people want to know how to Fire Smart both their private home and their community. So Fire Smart generally holds, or we will be holding some community events, some public barbecues, some information sessions throughout the region this year. We are going to try and make sure we hit all 10 electoral areas with at least one community event. That is the initial goal, dress goal for 2023. We'll do the best we can for you all, okay? And then the last thing that everyone is always worried about is all of that fuel that is all over the ground and in the forest that's right outside our little village's boundary. You stand on the side of the road or the edge of your property and look into the forest and it's nothing but fallen trees and tons of fuel. And that's just fuel. And that is fuel. So fuel mitigation and cleanup, that is a very large part of Fire Smart, but it's also an incredibly expensive part. It takes a lot of money and a lot of resource to do that. So in 2023, there is no budget for fuel mitigation and cleanup because of the sheer amount that is required for the CWRPs. Moving forward in 24, we will be applying for fuel mitigation and cleanup, but all these things come down to what your constituents want in your areas. Okay, so basically by the August long weekend, hopefully we'll have had multiple conversations with myself and each one of you to find, and from my coordinator that'll be on the ground, and we'll be able to find out what your citizens are most interested and wanting to work towards. And then we can set out our request or our grant requests for next year based around those requests as close as possible.
Sure. So just one more quick one. That fuel mitigation is that over and above any post-fire areas?
Yes.
Like we've had a lot of fuel mitigation done in our areas, which has been post-fired, right? So this is over and above that?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's everything in Fire Smart is separate from everything else inside this district. Okay, there's no overlap. Yes.
Is Fire Smart basically designed to protect residential property as such, or is Fire Smart also, say, my farming and ranching clientele to help them clean up their backyard too? Or is it mainly targeted to protect residential houses and communities in the TNRD?
Good question. It's actually for both. Okay, it's for all citizens, private and business. Okay, it is meant as it's designed and meant as a community philosophy. Okay, so the Fire Smart itself for the rebates, the rebate program is subjected strictly to homeowners. Okay, so that is not non-business, but the actual philosophy, the aspects, the education, the cleanup that is meant as a community broad-wide. Yes.
Then I know that in our backyard and that's in our logging practices, we've all tried to do a better, cleaner job, whether it be the chipping of the slash piles or everything and there's, a lot of people don't understand what's available out there. Like we had lead course chipper in our place 2 years ago for that very reason. They were up in the area. And I said, all these things are just a fire hazard. I don't want to burn them. So we chipped them all and we spent over a month in Edith Lake area south of town and all that fuel went to, the Merit to the cogen planter down to Warehouser. I think the ranching community needs a little bit of education on what they can do better.
Absolutely, and that's what this is about. The biggest part that we put out for this year is education. And that will always be the largest part that we will put out for in our grants, just so you're all very aware of it. The education part is truly the actual most expensive and the most time consuming, but it's the most important one. The more people are educated, the better we are at preventing these things down the road. Any other questions for me?
I'm sorry, but our time, we have to move on. We still have Regina to make a presentation. Her presentation is 90 minutes. And we're already into lunch. So if you have any questions, contact the training officer, Mr. Denny, on your own time, and he'll answer your questions. But we do have to move on to our next agenda item.
Thanks, guys.
And thanks for your presentation. As well we're doing. So now I have to go into a closed meeting. Do I have to read this clause or do we just vote to go into a closed meeting? Okay. This is a closed meeting that for presentation.